Canada makes a historic decision and bans the purchase of American products. The nation has made a radical shift in its trade policy, marking a turning point in its relationship with the United States. What began as a response to Trump's tariffs has become an unprecedented trade boycott, driven not only by the government but also by the Canadian people. The boycott has reached all levels of commerce. Restaurants and bars have eliminated ingredients and drinks from the US, opting for local alternatives. Sodas, whiskies, and other iconic US products are disappearing from menus. It's a matter of national pride, declared a restaurant owner in Toronto. The automotive sector has been one of the hardest hit by this decision. Consumers have announced their intention to stop buying vehicles manufactured in the United States, opting for German cars, Japanese, and Chinese cars. This measure jeopardizes thousands of jobs in the US auto industry, generating a crisis in the states most dependent on this sector. The consequences have not been long in coming. US businessmen have raised their voices, concerned about the drop in their sales in the Canadian market, which for decades has been their most important trading partner. However, far from giving in, Justin Trudeau's government has upped the ante, promoting new economic sanctions against products essential to the US economy. The outrage in Canada is not only due to Trump's tariffs, but also to his recent statements in which he suggested that Canada should be annexed to the United States as its 51st state to avoid trade problems. These words have been taken as an affront to Canadian sovereignty, further intensifying the rejection of US products. Trudeau has been clear in his response: if Trump thinks Canada is going to kneel, he is very wrong. We will defend our economic and political independence with all our might. The effects of this trade war are not only reflected in Canada, but also in the United States, where prices have begun to skyrocket. Staple foods like eggs and dairy have increased considerably in price, unleashing chaos among American consumers. We are going to have to take more money out of our pockets, and it is going to hurt us a lot, said a shopper at a New York supermarket. Bird flu had already wreaked havoc on egg production in the United States, and now, with the drop in imports from Canada and Mexico, the problem is getting worse. Faced with this situation, Donald Trump has threatened to further increase tariffs on Canada, this time taking them up to 50%. However, Trudeau was quick to respond with a forceful warning: if the United States continues to escalate this economic war, Canada could completely cut off oil and electricity exports to its southern neighbor. They need our energy. If they attack us, we will respond with more force. They will feel the pain of their own actions, said the Canadian Prime Minister. The economic outlook in the United States is getting darker. Inflation has begun to skyrocket, reaching critical levels. The cost of living in several US cities has increased dramatically, and experts warn that if this trade war continues, the economy could go into recession. The average American family is already feeling the impact. Prices at supermarkets, gas stations, and basic services are on the rise, directly affecting their purchasing power. Despite attempts by the White House to pressure Canada, the boycott continues to gain strength. Canadian unions have urged producers to stop importing US raw materials, further consolidating their country's economic independence. We don't want to depend on a partner who betrays us over and over again, said a union representative. In addition, trade between Canada and Mexico has increased significantly, strengthening an alliance that could displace the United States as the preferred partner of both countries. Specialists warn that this trade war could forever change the relationship between Canada and the United States. If both countries find alternative markets, the United States would lose two of its main buyers, which would have devastating consequences for its economy in the long term. Meanwhile, the pressure on Trump continues to grow. Financial markets have reacted negatively to economic uncertainty, and the US dollar has started to lose ground against other currencies. The international community is watching closely how this dispute could redefine the global trade balance. If Canada manages to stand firm and consolidate new markets, the United States could face an unprecedented crisis. The question now is, how far will this economic battle go? Will Trump continue his aggressive policy, or will he finally give in to pressure? For now, the only thing for sure is that Canada has shown that it is not willing to be stepped on. Its people have spoken, and the message is clear. The trade boycott against the United States is not just an economic measure, but a declaration of national independence. The fight is far from over, and the consequences of this confrontation are just beginning to be felt. As the economic battle between Canada and the United States intensifies, another crucial relationship comes into focus: the geopolitical dynamic between Mexico and the United States. Historically, these two nations have shared a complex but interdependent relationship. Trade agreements like NAFTA and its successor, the USMCA, have closely linked their economies, making any disruption potentially catastrophic for both sides. With the current climate of economic tension, Mexico finds itself in a precarious position. On the one hand, it benefits from its trade relationship with the United States. On the other, it must navigate the quicksand of U.S. foreign policy under the Trump administration. Mexican industries, especially in manufacturing and agriculture, are watching closely as the United States engages in trade wars with other nations, knowing that any ripple could turn into a tsunami for them. Furthermore, the issue of immigration remains a point of contention. While economic policies are debated, the human element cannot be ignored. Families, workers, and communities on both sides of the border live in a state of uncertainty, affected by policy decisions made in Washington and Mexico City. Faced with these challenges, Mexico is exploring new alliances and trading partners to diversify its economic dependencies. The European Union, China, and other Latin American countries are increasingly important in Mexico's foreign policy strategy. Ultimately, the outcome of the trade war between the United States and Canada will not only shape the future of North American economic relations, but it will also set a precedent for how Mexico handles its own complex relationship with its northern neighbor. As the world watches, the stakes have never been higher, and the geopolitical chessboard is more intricate than ever. As the trade tensions between Canada and the United States escalate, another important relationship comes under scrutiny: the diplomatic and economic ties between Mexico and Canada. Historically, both nations have enjoyed a cordial relationship, strengthened by their participation in trade agreements like NAFTA and its successor, the USMCA. Both Mexico and Canada find themselves in a unique position as they share a common interest in mitigating the impact of U.S. trade policies. This shared objective has led to increased diplomatic dialogue and cooperation between the two nations. Ultimately, the evolving relationship between Mexico and Canada serves as a compelling example of how nations can come together in times of global economic uncertainty.